Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to another episode of Quran in English. My name is Ahmed and I'm happy to take you through the last section of Surah Al-Kahf, the chapter of the cave. And we have a short episode for you today because it's only 11 verses long, from 99 to 110, as you can tell. So it's not going to be that long, so apologies to those who like long episodes, but it is what it is. Let me explain what I'm doing here. My purpose here is to read the Quran, listen to what is being read, and what is being recited, and what is being said, and try to see what I can understand as a result of it. I'm looking at primarily the Quran and only the Quran. I'm not focusing on Hadith, so if this is what you're looking for, then find another channel. I don't think I'm the right person for you. But I'm trying to see what I understand first. That's not to say that Hadith is not important. That's not to say that I won't review Hadith. It's just that currently my education journey is focused on what can I read and what can I understand before I listen to anyone else. But I will listen to others. And I would actually like to hear from you. If you see something or hear something that you disagree with or have a different perspective of, even if you have a different perspective from Hadith, by all means, feel free to share it. I'm not rejecting any elements, and I would like to learn from you as much as I hope that you learn from me as well. The purpose of this channel is education, so that we should learn from each other as much as possible, with the hopes of trying to understand what the Quran is telling us and what are the main messages. In the end of the day, the Quran is beautiful and lovely, and I'm having a wonderful time learning about it, so I'm hoping that you enjoy it as well. Before we begin, I must always give the disclaimer of I am not a Quranic scholar nor an Arabic linguist. I've not studied the Quran. In fact, this is my first read-through for a lot of the Quran, but not this chapter. And I'm not an Arabic linguist. I did not study the Arabic language beyond school. So keep those two disclaimers in mind. And I think that's it. We can get into it. But before we get into the verses, we're supposed to talk about the previous verse. The previous verses that we were talking about was Gog and Magog, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and how they were sealed away by Dhul Qarnayn by a barrier, and the barrier will come down, and it's one of the signs of Judgment Day. And this is a mercy from our Lord, but He will level it to the ground, and God's promise was ever true. All right, that's all the background that you need. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, and off we go.
وتركنا بعضهم يومئذ يموج في بعض ونفخ في الصور فجمعناهم جمعا.
All right, what is it saying? It is saying, and we left some of them on that day to surge over others. So, and let me read the rest of it. And then we blew in, and it will be blown in the trumpet, and then we will gather them all together. So here the footnote, it's saying that the ones that are surging like over one another it's saying the footnote is saying as if it's Gog and Magog, but the grammar of this phrase doesn't seem to indicate that, because بعضهم, some of them, not one of them to surge over the other. It's some to surge over some, and it seems to be a group over a group. I think it is tied to Gog and Magog. I think it is tied to Ya'juj and Ma'juj. However, I don't think it is just talking about them surging. And the idea, what is the belief that a lot of people have, and again, we probably got this understanding from Hadith, so with all the disclaimers that I gave above, take it with a pinch of salt. But that when Ya'juj and Ma'juj, Gog and Magog, will be released, as is the promise of God that they will be, that they will cause chaos and suffering, and there's a lot of fear associated to their release, and there's a lot of intensity, and I believe that also they will start affecting people. And I think that's kind of what is being said, that the people will be surging waves upon each other. And then, because the second half of this verse says, and it will be blown in the trumpet, and we know that the trumpet will be blown on Judgment Day. So then it says, we will gather them all. So again, we will all be gathered on Judgment Day after the trumpet is blown. It's also known as the Day of Gathering. Also, side note, there was a quick Google search tells you that the angel that will blow the trumpets on Judgment Day is called Israfil, but we don't have any Quranic reference to suggest that, so I'm not going to talk about it. But it is believed that an angel will blow, but it doesn't say that an angel will blow. It just says that the trumpet will be blown, so it will gather them all together. Is there any indication from the previous verse? No, it's just talking about Ya'juj wa Ma'juj, and how they were sealed, and how they couldn't scale it or tunnel through it, and that he will level it and it will be promised, and then on that day we'll let some of them on that day surge into others. And I'm not sure what exactly that means, but I do know that the trumpet will be blown and we will all be gathered. And what will happen on the day that we are all gathered?
وعرضنا جهنم يومئذ للكافرين عرضا.
And we will display hell on that day to the disbelievers as a great display. So all the disbelievers on the day of judgment will see hell. The very thing that they doubted about, the very thing that got them there, that they didn't think about it, they didn't accept to find God and accept to believe in only Him. They will see it, which is a terrifying concept. A terrifying concept of seeing eternal damnation before you get into it. It's like, ooh, I don't like horror movies, so I would hate this. Just say, I would really hate it. But I think every single person would hate this. To see something that is so terrible. But yep.
الذين كانت أعينهم في غطاء عن ذكري وكانوا لا يستطيعون سمعا.
This is so the people who are looking at hell. Those are the ones who had their eyes within a cover from my remembrance, my mention. What does it say? The Quran. It says from the Quran, but I don't think that this is. Yes, the Quran is dhikr, but I think it's more referring to remembering God and mentioning God. It is talking about their eyes. So what their eyes can see, and we also the Quran uses "don't you see" as an often example, and not a literal vision, but a mental seeing. Don't you get it? Don't you see what we're talking about? Don't you see it? So the analogy of the eyes is always about seeing the truth and seeing what's right. It could be the Quran. I'm not saying it's not the Quran. I'm saying it's not only the Quran. I'm saying it means they couldn't see that they had to remember. They couldn't see that they had to mention. They couldn't see the truth with their mind's eye, so to speak. And they were unable to hear. And here it says, and they could not stand listening to it. No, the Quran is very clear. And they were not able to hear it. And we've seen this time and time again in a lot of the examples given in the Quran, that their hearts are covered with a seal, because your hearts also sense that their eyes are blind and that their ears are deaf. And a deaf ear cannot hear. It's a physical inability. It's not that you hear it and you go, I can't stand it, turn that off. Because I've also seen disbelievers that can hear the Quran or appreciate the Quran, but not necessarily believe. Some of them can think it's beautiful. Whether or not those people will be believers at the end of time is beyond me. So maybe certain disbelievers will not be able to stand it, but what the verse is exactly saying, and they were not able to hear it. So they couldn't see my remembrance, and they couldn't hear it. But here, actually, it describes the ones that have a cover over their eyes, and then they can't hear it. I wonder if there's a significance to having something blocking the eyes versus being unable to hear. Anyway, the people that go to hell are the people who could not realize that they had to worship.
أفحسب الذين كفروا أن يتخذوا عبادي من دوني أولياء إنا أعتدنا جهنم للكافرين نزلا.
This reader's voice is amazing, by the way. I know I say this for almost every reader that I come across, but still. And here we get into a little bit of a controversial, spicy topic. Do they then think, those that disbelieve, that they can take my servants, my slaves, what belong to God, besides me as protectors? Indeed, we have prepared a hell for the disbelievers as a lodging. The reason why this is interesting, and the reason why this is controversial, and the reason why this is spicy, is what are my servants? So the first thing that came up to my mind with my servants is like, oh, okay. So the things that people worship, the Hecates, I don't know the names of all the Lokis, people worship a whole bunch of things. I'm like, oh, are those things God's slaves? And then it made me think about, for instance, Hindu gods, and I wonder how maybe like the idea of Hindu gods are, obviously they're not gods, but maybe they're like ways of nature or thought or process, like their mental constructs serving God. And I was thinking of that in a concept, and it got super metaphorical and super ethereal. But the most obvious and most spicy version of this is that who in this world has taken, besides God, one of God's servants, a human, as a protector instead of God? And the answer that comes to my mind is Christians that have taken Jesus as a protector instead of God. And we've had the question come up several times: do Christians go to hell or not? I cannot answer that question because I feel like it is more complicated and nuanced, because they believe that God and Jesus are one. And some people go an even step further than that. They believe that God is everyone. And in a metaphorical sense, you can kind of accept it. But in a literal sense, you can't and shouldn't. And obviously the Christians do believe that Jesus is literally God as well. And they pray to Jesus. They don't pray to who Jesus told them to pray to, which is Jesus told them to pray to God. But they pray to Jesus instead. Which is a prime example of they take one of my servants from besides me as a protector. Again, I cannot answer the question if Christians go to hell. I personally struggle with that idea. I don't think that all Christians, I mean, like, even if we were supposed to change their minds today and get them to believe in only being one God and follow what Jesus was saying, does that mean all the Christians that died before today will go to hell? I struggle with that idea. I struggle with that idea a lot. So, again, it's not for me to decree who will go to hell or not. It is not for anyone to decree who will go to hell or not. It is for God's judgment to be there. It is only for us to follow the instruction that is before us, worship only God. And it says, indeed, we have prepared a hell for the disbelievers as a lodging. Yeah, scary words.
قل هل ننبئكم بالأخسرين أعمالا.
Say, shall we inform you of the greatest losers as to their deeds? Who will be the biggest losers based off of their deeds?
الذين ضل سعيهم في الحياة الدنيا وهم يحسبون أنهم يحسنون صنعا.
Yeah, and we saw this parable earlier in the story. Those that are lost, those that lost is their effort in this worldly life, while they think that they are acquiring good and doing good work. The biggest losers are the people who think that they're doing the best work, but their efforts in this worldly life are lost. And then it continues to describe them a bit more.
أولئك الذين كفروا بآيات ربهم ولقائه فحبطت أعمالهم فلا نقيم لهم يوم القيامة وزنا.
It says, those that who are the ones who disbelieve in the verses of their Lord and their meeting with Him, so rendering their deeds void, making it vain, and it literally means like dropping their deeds, like they have no value, dropping their deeds, so that we will not فَلَا نُقِيمُ لَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَزْنًا. So we will not assign to them on the day of resurrection any weight. Their deeds will not have any weight. They will lose their weight. They'll lose their value. So I can understand why some people would say that, the disbelief of our verses. So some Muslims within the community say that, the Christians and the Jews disbelieved in the verses of God in the Quran, therefore these are who they're talking about. But in other parts of the Quran, it also references the Christians and the Jews as the people of the book. And it does reference that there's a reason why there's a difference between the Christians, Jews, and Muslims, and that we will all find out this reason at the end of times. So based on all the above, I don't think that... I like how I said 2 seconds ago that I'm not going to pass judgment, but I feel like I'm not going to pass judgment, but I'm going to pass my understanding. According to my understanding, I don't think the Christians are going to hell, even though they are committing a grave sin. But really, it's not my place to make that kind of comment. But just based off of other verses of the Quran, it's a long struggle, and in the end of the day, we have to be sure not to be arrogant, not to speak for God. I'm only sharing my understanding. I'm obviously not sharing a decree and not telling others what is going to happen or who is going where. And also the reason why I said we've covered this in the verse earlier today in the chapter. There was the parable of the two farmers, one who had all the greenery and the vegetation and the water flow, and he felt strong and powerful, and he's like, I'm surely going, even if I die, I'm going to go to heaven and God's going to take care of me. Nobody can speak for God. Nobody can speak for where we're going. And all we can do is try and believe the signs of God in our meeting with Him, so that our deeds do not lose their value. And it's also like, I want to bring up that verse of like the differences between Jews, Christians, and Muslims in the Quran. In chapter 2 was talked about so that they can race in goodness. It felt like it was necessary for God to have 3 different versions of religion, so to speak, because I believe it was because of a human nature to compete, but we don't have any evidence of that. All it says is that so that you can race in goodness. And I cannot imagine God would say, so the Christians and Jews can race in goodness, and then so that they can just go to hell. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, The fact that they're racing to goodness is an indication that they're also doing good in the world. So, and I do believe that to be the case. Some are very powerful. All right, we've diverted enough. Let's focus on the verses.
ذلك جزاؤهم جهنم بما كفروا واتخذوا آياتي ورسلي هزوا.
That is the recompense, obviously, for the ones that disbelieve in God's signs. That is the recompense, hell, of what they disbelieved, and they took my verses and my messengers in ridicule. Again, it's elaborating on these specific people that are going to hell. And I don't feel like the Christians are mocking the Jews and the Muslims. I don't think the Muslims are mocking the Christians and the Jews. I don't think the Jews are mocking the Christians and the Muslims, but I don't really know that many Jewish people. I would love to. Anyway.
إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا.
And every time in the Quran when there's a mention of hell, there's immediately the flip side, the mention of heaven. Because all messengers and all prophets were brought to bring down the message. There's only one God, worship only him. And that do good, get into heaven, do bad, get into hell. That's how it works. And indeed, those who believed and did good deeds, again, I feel like that fits within the Jewish and Christian communities. It was for them the gardens of Al-Firdaus is an interesting word. It's a beautiful word. Paradise. Nuzula. There's a footnote. Al-Firdaus, the highest place in paradise. Okay. That's interesting. Either way, you're in heaven. Like, I never understood this highest, lowest place in heaven. Like, I mean, if I get to heaven, even at the lowest level, I will take it. I will be grateful. I cannot imagine. But there are obviously, like, some people are like, okay, so if I just believe, and do all the pillars of religion, then that's it. I don't gotta go out of my way to do anything good or anything bad. Let me just do the bare minimum, get into heaven. And I can't necessarily fault them for that, because I'm very much of that mentality. I'm very much, at least in my education systems, in my work, in my anything except for the Quran. I've been, how do I make sure that I do the absolute bare minimum to succeed? And I think that if you do that to get into heaven, honestly, fair. But I do feel like the more good that you do, the more reward that you get. And there are degrees of separation. And for instance, we covered in one of the previous sections that, waking up in the middle of the night to pray is a way to get your name in the honors. I'm paraphrasing poorly, but like if you get up in the middle of the night to pray, that's not a surefire way, but a way to get your name in a high mention. And it feels like there are degrees, and it feels like separations, and yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
خالدين فيها لا يبغون عنها حولا.
They are abiding in it forever, and they do not desire from it any transfer. They don't desire to go anywhere else. Why would you want to leave heaven? Which brings me to an interesting point. A lot of people critique God by saying, oh, if God loves everyone, or if God is perfect, then why is this world imperfect? And I'm like, okay, you're kind of missing the point. This world isn't supposed to be perfect. This world is supposed to have difficulty and struggle and hardships. This is not heaven. People talk as if this is supposed to be heaven, but this is the test of whether we get into heaven or not. And this is why you got to be not only a believer, but you got to do good things. You got to be righteous. You got to do good. And once you've passed the test, once you've got in, then you're in. Then you're in the place where you're supposed to be. And then it'll be the thing that people talk about. Oh, why can't God create a perfect world? He can, and he did. And we got to get there. We got to prove ourselves. And the interesting thing is life is long, right? Maintaining faith is long. Maintaining faith is difficult. And like I am at the highest point of my faith now because I'm reading Quran as often as possible. I'm praying 5 times a day. But I got to keep doing these things in order to maintain my faith. I can never become arrogant and say, oh, I'm righteous, I'm smart, I'm getting to heaven, and then like stop doing the things that I need to do to kind of keep me humble, keep me grounded, keep me focused on doing good. The test is not passed at any specific moment. The test is only judged at the very end, which makes it a very difficult test. Because the idea is that you could fall before the end, right? Astaghfirullah on the thought. Anyway.
قل لو كان البحر مدادا لكلمات ربي لنفد البحر قبل أن تنفد كلمات ربي لنفد البحر قبل أن تنفد كلمات ربي ولو جئنا بمثله مددا.
Here's an interesting phrase. It says, say. Again, they add the words, O Prophet, but we can all say these words. It's not limited to the Prophet. It applies to the Prophet, but it can also be applied to us. Say, if the sea were ink for the words of my God, then the sea would be exhausted before you exhausted the words of my God. If the sea was all of ink and you were to write down the words of God, and here I think it means all the seas, all the oceans, all the water on the earth. If it was ink and you were to write down words of God, which, like just that visual is like, that's a lot of words. You would not finish the words of God. Even if you were to bring the like of it as a supplement, even if you were to refill the seas twice, and you like, as a person who has access to language, we all speak, we all listen, we all hear, we're all literate. At least I hope that we all are. I don't understand how you're using YouTube otherwise, or Twitch. We can come up with an infinite amount of sentences based off of the infinite amount of words, but they'll probably be mostly not very good. But it's kind of talking about, where does knowledge come from? Where do words come from? And I'm reminded of a verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, one of the most powerful verses, called Surah Ayat al-Kursi. Let me just say it, because then I'll get to the part that I remember. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء. And they do not encompass anything from his knowledge except for what he wills. And there is an idea and understanding that all knowledge comes from God. Everything, and like, where did language come from? Some people say that, oh yeah, language was like before the inventions of, before any of the inventions, and also it's like, you can see modern day languages that are invented, or like computer languages that are invented. Computer languages is a great example. Computer languages that are invented are limited in whatever you create them to do and to be, whereas language seems to have, and like some of the older languages, like there's an like, where did they come from? Nobody sat down and, well, some people say that people sat down and then kind of wrote them, and you can kind of see it with certain languages, that certain words were formed based off of things that they saw, things that they understood. But language is it's a big mystery to me. Maybe someone who's a linguist out there, of where it comes from. And I think it kind of also speaks to the glory of God. Hello, Hadavar777. I remember the name 777 but being for a username who said Jesus is going to save you, but maybe there's more than one user that says 777, so this is the lucky user. Hiya, welcome to the channel. We're talking about language, we're talking about where does it come from, we're talking about God and God's words. Are you the Mahdi? Well, that is a very interesting question that I will address at the end of the session, because I want to focus on the Quran as much as possible, and that gets into a very long discussion. But yeah, so here we're talking about the words of God. Where does language come from? Where do ideas come from? And it feels like God has at his disposal something a lot larger and a lot greater than we know or can encompass or can imagine. Because also the sea is a lot of ink, right? To imagine that as a lot of ink, it's just, God is great is the message of this verse. And the last verse for today.
قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد فمن كان يرجو لقاء ربه فليعمل عملا صالحا فليعمل عملا صالحا ولا يشرك بعبادة ربه أحدا.
And here it says say, and again we add the words "O Prophet." It's not in the verse, but it's there. I also believe that the Quran is a guidebook for messengers. I think we've shared that story plenty of times, but feel free to drop a comment if you want to understand my perspective on it. It says say, and the Prophet definitely should say this: "Indeed, I am only a man like you. It has been revealed to me that your God is one God. So whoever was hoping to meet his God, his Lord, let him do deeds that are good and righteous, and do not associate in his worship of his Lord, anyone." Very clear, very direct, very powerful, and very beautiful. And oh wow, I just realized what the next chapter is. Okay, first of all, we always say Sadaq Allah al-Ali al-Azim at the end of every Quran session, and that's going to be the end of today's episode. It's a short episode. However, next chapter, you might be able to read it. You should be able to read it. It says Maryam, aka Mary, mother of Jesus. I'm very excited to read what's in this chapter. I'm looking forward to it. We've obviously covered in Al Imran a bit about her and a bit about the story, but I'm very, very curious to see what Maryam is. And then it's Taha, then it's Al-Anbiya, then Al-Hajj. We have some very exciting Mu'minun and Nur. We have a lot of exciting chapters up ahead of us, and I hope that you catch me on this YouTube channel or on Twitch if you join me. And I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Thanks for watching. As-salamu.